2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hrithik Sangani Podcast, where we interview professionals in medicine, health, and science and discuss innovations that can aid in human longevity. We took a bit of a break for January and I think basically the better half of February right now. But first episode of 2026, we're getting it done. It's going to be great. I have an amazing guest for you guys today. He is the CEO and founder of Case-Specific Nutrition, and he's also a Pitt alum. So hail to Pitt. Please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Andrew Wade. What's up, dude?
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Also want to add that we also do have another guest today. It is Andrew's dog, Remy. This is like the first dog on the Hrithik Sangani Podcast, and she's amazing. Love her already.
She goes everywhere with me, dude. She's at my feet. Probably won't even see her in the shot the whole time.
That's all right.
Most people won't see or hear from her, but she is here.
People need to know she's awesome. And obviously I'm merched up for today, repping the Case-Specific.
Appreciate you repping the swag.
Yeah, of course, dude. You right before we started filming, he was like, "Yeah, I got your merch." I was like, "I'm putting this on."
Yes,
like, absolutely.
He understood the assignment.
Hell yeah. So I want to ask before we get started, how does it feel? You're the veteran podcaster here. How does it feel to be in the other side of the interviewer chair?
It's fun. It's been a minute. I'll be honest. I was thinking about it. One of my dietitians the other day asked me, "Have you ever been interviewed on a podcast?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, a ton of them." But then I started thinking, when was the last time I was the guest?
Yeah,
it's been a minute because, you know, our podcast has obviously been a big attention sucker for me, and so I've been pouring into that, and so it feels good to be in this side of the chair, man.
Yeah, I think I was trying to subtly give hints, but I was listening to your podcast for a while, and then like I started sharing out my story. People, "Oh, this podcast is really cool." It's like, "Yeah, it's really cool." Like, so
you should stay tuned to my podcast for more information.
But yeah, so hey, listen, so Andrew, on my last episode, I interviewed my first longevity doctor, Dr. Christian, and the topic of food and how our system doesn't necessarily prioritize nutrition, it came up like multiple times. So it got me really intrigued about the topic. And that's why I was really excited to talk to you, because you're a dietitian, but you're not just a dietitian. You've also made a company and a platform that employs other dietitians and has done a fantastic job, in my opinion, of educating people on nutrition and on dieting. So I think there's no better person to answer this first question. What is a dietitian?
Oh, that's a great question. So a dietitian is a very specific subset of things. And so if someone says they're a registered dietitian, we will compare that to someone that says they're a nutritionist, because those are the two kind of main titles that are within the realm of nutrition. A registered dietitian, it means they did an undergraduate degree in dietetics, which is a very specific pre-med adjacent 120 credit undergraduate degree. Okay. It does not exist at most universities. It is a very specific undergraduate degree. They then had to do what we'll call a residency, for a better way to describe it, but it is actually a dietetic internship is what it's called for us. And it is 1,800 hours of supervised practice, 1,200 basically actually acting as a clinician, and then 600 didactic, which is the educational or learning side. Okay. And then they also have a master's degree in an approved or adjacent field. So not everyone has the same master's if you're a dietitian, but they all have to have an approved master's degree. So that is what a dietitian is. It is undergrad, residency, master's degree. I did my undergrad at Pitt. Hail to Pitt. They have a wonderful, they're a top-end dietetics program in the nation. They're one of the top 5. Okay. I did my internship at Adagio Health, which is a women's health organization here in Western Pennsylvania, which allowed me to do all sorts of cool things, working with WIC and startup, power up, like in schools, working in the food service side of things, working in long-term care, clinical care. I was a dietitian in the Giant Eagles when they were doing on-site dietitianing that way. So it's to say about 13 different rotations, different dietitian roles and responsibilities across a year. And then I did my master's at Pitt, but I did mine in wellness and human performance. So that's where you kind of alluded to some of the things that make me feel a little unique in how, my biochemistry heavy, pathophysiology heavy. Some of that is I'm just a nerd and I've been in practice 12 years and have worked with tens of thousands of patients. The other part is that I did a master's in human performance. And so it was exercise phys, pathophys, and then there was like relationship with food behavior. It was a very unique master's for what I'd call like a proactive care clinician. Dietitians will have clinical dietetic backgrounds. They'll have exercise science or exercise phys backgrounds. So you have to get to know your dietitian a little better, but 4-year, 2-year residency. Sometimes that 2-year in residency is combined as a coordinated program. That's a dietitian. A nutritionist is literally meaningless.
Really?
There's nothing stopping you from calling yourself a nutritionist. There's nothing stopping a chiropractor from attending a weekend seminar and prescribing the HCG diet and calling themselves a nutritionist.
Do I need to go through 4 years of undergrad? Is that it?
No, a nutritionist just means a person that studies nutrition. It is not actually a clinical profession. It is not a medical specialty. If someone calls themselves a nutritionist, it could mean that they're somebody that reads about nutrition and is self-proclaimed. Okay. It could also mean someone like Lane Norton, right? Who, for anyone that knows who he has a PhD in biochemical nutrition. So like, he's obviously a nutritionist and he's one of the most brilliant of our time. So maybe listen to that guy. But nutritionist is actually a meaningless term. And so that is something to be very careful of.
I thought that was before even this conversation, I thought that was an actual profession.
Yeah, it is not.
Shocking.
It is a term that is meant to be a broad scope. It is one that people use. So a lot of influencers will call themselves nutritionists. And that, you have to, again, I say the Lane Norton of it all to explain that doesn't mean every nutritionist is underqualified, but if someone calls themselves a nutritionist, you better understand what their actual qualifications are.
Okay. I mean, I guess, yeah, it's different. Like he has a PhD, which is a different caliber than saying like, oh yeah, I just read like a cookbook. Not to demean people who like are trying to make their livings, but like if that's kind of what it's sounding like, is
correct.
That
a nutritionist catches all of those, and so you don't really, if you hear nutritionist, you shouldn't be satisfied with that description. You really need to know who it is. And I'll even say within a subset, saying someone's a registered dietitian, it takes it from nutritionist, which is their knowledge level could be a 1 to a 10. A dietitian is going to get you to at least a 5 because there's a certain background. Now, there are a lot of types of dietitians, right? So a dietitian that spent their entire career in a hospital working in acute care or working in a burn unit, do I want them fueling one of my professional athletes? Probably not. And so once again, I'm not going to claim that every dietitian's a 10 out of 10, but they're definitely going to be at least a 5 out of 10 because of mandatory core knowledge that gives them a mental map that is a requirement for clinical expertise. They're going to definitely be very valuable in medical nutrition therapy, which is the more clinical side of what we do, which can help people with irritable bowel disease and all sorts of inflammatory conditions.
Yeah.
They may not be as specialized to do some of the lifestyle, some of the habits, some of the more proactive care stuff. That's going to be private practice. That's going to be some subspecialties of RDs, but you at least know that you've got someone who is definitely a certified, verified nutrition nerd if they say they're a registered dietitian.
Heck yeah. That brings me to a question. So you mentioned that a lot of dietitians, so it's the 4 years of undergrad, it's the residency comes after undergrad?
It does.
Residency, internship, I guess in this context, those words are interchangeable.
Yep.
And then you have the master's degree. So like for yourself, you got your master's degree in, it was, what is it again?
Wellness and human performance.
Wellness and human performance. I'm curious, what would a dietitian who works in a hospital, what have you seen they get their master's degrees in?
Clinical dietetics and nutrition.
Okay.
And to be fair, a whole bunch of the dietitians that I work with at my company are from Pitt, and they did their undergrad and master's there. The master's there is clinical dietetics and nutrition. I did an adjacent master's there.
Okay.
But the comment I'll make is that 40 to 50% of our caseloads were the same. And then I just had a bunch of other stuff that they did more clinical things and I did more lifestyle things, more exercise, more sports, a bit more behavior and psychology. So I got to go kind of like nerd out in some adjacent fields where they really dug in hard. But some of my best clinicians have that master's, but then they got into the world of private practice and did all their continuing ed and all their focuses.
Okay.
And so now you have 5-year clinicians that have a really clinical background, but have really honed in on the sports front and really honed in on some of those areas. And so it's what's hard about education is attempts to standardize education is never going to get you your 10 out of 10 clinician. The hope is it gets you your 5 out of 10, maybe best case your 7 out of 10. So there's some peace of mind. And that's why I said it the way I did. Nutritionist, I don't know if they're a 1 out of 10. I don't even know if they're a negative 5 out of 10. Like I said, it could literally be a chiropractor that spent a weekend on the HCG diet and now sells that as a protocol to anyone that'll listen.
Right.
Not throwing shade at chiropractors because there are plenty of great ones out there. But that's an example of like, I wouldn't give that person the light of day in terms of their nutrition knowledge. They have a heavily biased protocol that they're tied to. Well, that's dangerous. That's not even a positive. And so it's to say that at least registered dietitian, there is some subset of knowledge, and there's going to be an ability to engage in what I'd call core lifestyle philosophies.
Okay. I mean, that's why I asked that question, is because I think it's people to understand. It's important for people to understand, and for myself too, to understand like what that degree or what that title actually entails. Which actually brings me to my next question is, so I saw there was when I was doing research, there was RDN, which is registered dietitian. There's like some other degrees you guys got too. It's like LDN. Like, is there a difference between those two?
It's great to clarify this. So RDN stands for Registered Dietitian Nutritionist.
Okay.
We used to be RD, which is Registered Dietitian. We added the N to try and help people understand that like you should find a registered dietitian nutritionist,
Okay.
not just, so like we aren't the same thing. That was kind of what that was. That was 10 years ago that came out. So now RDN is our federal credential. And so to be an RD, once you do the undergrad and then you do the dietetic internship, you have to sit for a federal exam, an RD exam. And so that is where we are a federal, and that's where we're a medical specialist. We are the only nutrition thing that can bill medical insurance as a medical specialist.
Okay.
So that is where like a nutritionist can't do that.
Can't do that. Okay,
They're
that's
not
important.
a medical specialist. They are a self-proclaimed lifestyle enthusiast.
Yeah, they're not clinicians. That's also that word itself also means like you can call a doctor a
They
clinician.
didn't do a residency, so they are not a clinician. And so dietitians are a clinician. We are specifically a nutrition clinician. LDN is our licensure. So I am an RDN, LDN licensed dietitian nutritionist. There is state licensure for what we do. Licensure varies across states. PA does have licensure.
Okay.
So I'm a licensed dietitian in the state of Pennsylvania. We've got a couple others that we're licensed in as well. And then my last credential is CSSD, which is Certified Specialist in Sports Dietetics.
Oh, okay.
So that is after you become a dietitian, you have to get 2,000 hours of supervised, specialized sports news. For me, as it was sports nutrition education, and then you have to sit for an additional exam, and that one covers sports nutrition. So it's exercise physiology, sports nutrition, and then eating disorders and disordered eating.
Wow.
That's my subset. So I got that credential in 2017, and then it renews. You have to take an exam every 5 years to maintain that credential.
Okay.
There are, directionally correct, not exact number, around 10 subset specialties: renal specialty, oncology specialty, obesity specialty, eating disorder specialty, various specialties like that. Diabetes is another one. So mine is within the sports nutrition, which is, again, sports. It's going to also be chronic disease. So it's like diet and exercise for chronic disease management. So that's where dietitians with the CSSD did a bunch of extra training to talk exercise for people trying to lose weight or deal with metabolic issues, and then eating disorders. And so that's where I am an MS, RDN, LDN, CSSD. And man, that's an exhausting thing to say. So call me Andrew.
So suffice it to say is you got the hours, you put in the time, you put in the degrees.
I
dude.
did some schooling.
You did some schooling.
I dabbled before I opened my shingle. Yeah.
You dabbled. It's funny.
More than a weekend seminar is what I'll say.
I mean, yeah. I think also another question, and I think people will know I've been spending, my mentor is a real estate attorney. So I think people will understand that I've been spending a lot more time with a lawyer when I ask this question is, what's the difference between diet or dieting and nutrition? Like, I'm thinking before, having this conversation, like, oh, you could eat to diet or you could eat for nutrition, as in you're malnourished, but maybe you could clarify what the difference between those two words means.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at posing what I would hope to be the definitions. And because that's, I think, to your point, I think in our society, you can see this a lot within the wellness space, is a lot of words don't have declarative meaning. Things like clean, right? Healthy. Ask 20 people what health means. Yeah. Get 20 different answers. Diet. So let's throw some stuff at the wall and see if this lands for you. Diet. What you eat over the course of a period of time. So your diet, we could look at your daily diet. What do you eat daily? Your weekly diet, what comes in weekly? Your monthly. Let's pile it up on a table and look at it. So your diet is literally just what you eat.
Okay.
Let's look at your diet. Dieting would be the practice of basically looking at your diet or aiming your diet in some way.
Okay.
Right. So I'm dieting, which means there's some intentionality to what I'm eating. I'm not just piling food on a table. I'm aiming said pile at something. And so dieting could be something like I am eating a diet that is sans carbohydrates, aka a ketogenic diet. I am eating a diet that is sans fats. That's a Pritikin diet. I am eating a diet that does not include gluten and dairy, right? So we can restrict, there's a couple ways you can restrict. You can restrict macronutrients, you can restrict ingredients, or you can restrict time. And those are the three ways to basically diet, if you will, or practice dieting.
Okay.
So those
macronutrients,
are ways,
time, and
ingredients. So that'd be the difference between going keto, which is like removing carbs, going gluten-free, dairy-free, or paleo, which is removing certain ingredients from your diet, versus practicing intermittent fasting and saying, I only eat between the hours of 11 and 7. All of those things are meant to modify the diet, aka what's piled up on the table in some way. But dieting is the practice of that. And there is nothing wrong with dieting at baseline, but a lot of people follow templates of dieting that are not good or ideal or optimal. So in the practice of dieting, are you practicing something that's actually to your net benefit? Or are you practicing some sort of diet that is rooted in fear, that is rooted in fear mongering, that is rooted in deception? Is your brain creating random rules that make no sense and really create no positive outcome in your life? Or are you trying to be intentional? So the intentionality with which you diet matters. Nutrition is what you receive from your diet. So we have all that stuff piled on a table. What are you getting from it? Probably some carbohydrates, hopefully some fiber, hopefully some protein, probably a variety of fatty acids across the mono and poly and, both omega-3 and omega-6 and the polys, probably some saturated fats as well. Hopefully it's ones that are a little higher in medium chain triglyceride concentration. So they're better received, more easily broken down and less straining on the body, less likely to go into the arteries with LDL and store and create atherosclerotic plaques. We're probably getting some micronutrients. We might be getting some functional ingredients like antioxidants and all of that.
Yeah.
So the nutrition assessment of your diet is one way in which you can analyze a diet and say, is that diet valuable to you? Right. And so what I would argue there is when you look at your diet, you're going to say, nutritionally speaking, is this valuable to me? Socially speaking, is this valuable to me? Psychologically speaking, is this valuable to me? And then genetically / biologically speaking, is this valuable to me? And so you could look at your diet and observe it from a biopsychosocial approach and decide if it's actually supporting you in all the ways food is meant to support you. So nutrition is one lens. And what I'd note is in our society, we've kind of lost the plot with that. That's one of the main ways that when we think about all the questions you have for me about nutrition, a lot of it's rooted in there's just so much information out there, what's right. And it's, most of these things they start right and then they just go way too into the weeds, right? So it's the idea of, I'll give you a fun example. People that feel guilty eating cod because it has less omega-3s than salmon. It's I know it's not salmon because salmon's the A+, and it's is it? Did you need 7 grams of omega-3s? So that's a perfect example of we will just randomly grade foods without context of what we actually needed, right? We'll say, well, I know a sweet potato would be better than rice. And it's did you need the vitamin A or did you need the just pure carbohydrate, right? We can't always just look at the nutritional aspect of a food and determine whether or not it was actually the right food in that moment.
It's context, it's case specific.
Wow. Man, if only someone could create a company that
if only if a company existed.
Yeah, wild.
But no, I mean, because when I was looking at how to construct a set of questions for you that are in tune with the theme of the podcast, is I realized there was so much I could ask you, so we did kind of have to dial it down. But yeah,
might have to do a second episode, dude. That's fine.
Probably I'd have to.
How much I talk? If they like me, bring me back.
Listen, I'm loving it so far.
Good. Hey, it's got to be a little for you. This podcast is allowed to be a little selfish.
Oh, I mean, so yes. Well, actually, yes, because when I initially started this, my mentor was if you're gonna underdo this kind of take upon this endeavor that you're gonna do, you got to be getting something out of it, and not necessarily even just anything material. It's just there's got to be some self development. There's got to be some, some skill development too, and that's honestly been the most rewarding part of it.
Yeah. I like to think of a podcast as aiming up in public.
Oh, can you explain?
Yeah. So think about, do you know Chris Williamson?
I do.
Yeah. Most people do now, right? He has one of the top 10 podcasts in the world. all his podcast is him trying to become a better man in public.
Yeah.
Every interview is him trying to interview people that help him better understand philosophies, concepts, and the world. And all we've watched him do is go from being some F-boy on
Love Island? Yeah,
one of them,
yeah.
to being one of the most introspective and growth-minded people on the planet. And we've gotten to watch him do that in real time over a 7 or 8 year span. And proud of him. Awesome. Keep doing what you do, bro. I hope you hear this. That'd be wild.
Heck yeah.
But it's to say that a podcast is really you aiming up, you trying to be better, more competent, whether it's within your profession or whether it's within your other aspects and avenues of your life. And you're deciding, hey, while I aim up, while I meet passionate people and learn, I'm going to hit the record button and share it with anyone else who wants to listen. Aim up in public.
Well, I mean, hey, I think that actually succinctly describes the goal, because it's been something that I think I want to ideally carry this through. And I'm not even in medical school yet, but through medical school, through residency, and then through attending, and kind of just see, as you say, aim up in public, and you see the transformation of someone across time, and you keep these videos as a repository. Yeah, man. I mean, I would say I have that same goal. So I love that definition.
It's a beautiful view. And that's when you think of the platform that way, you go, ooh, over the next 10 years that you're a student. And to be fair, we're lifelong learners. And so that doesn't stop then. But in the next decade, you're going to have a variety of people that you interview based on the things you're trying to learn and most curious about. You're going to have various changes in your life as your specialty refines and as your way of impacting the universe refines. Obviously, other aspects like your personal aspects will change. The people you interview may change if you end up in a partnership and end up with, soon to be dad. All of a sudden, you're wanting to talk to more OBGYNs. This podcast will be you learning, you plugging your brain into information and collecting perspectives from a variety of humans across, and you get to share that with anyone else who wants to listen. Worst case scenario, it's there for you, and 10 years older you gets to listen to this. Best case scenario, it helps one other person times X number.
Right. Thank you. Seriously.
So keep going.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Press play, man.
Hell
Pour into it.
Well, coming back to the topic at hand, though, I really appreciate that breakdown. And I think, so I told you, we had an initial call before we decided to film, and I told you I did a little bit of social media stalking of you, as the kids do nowadays. And
good place to start.
Yeah. So, but when I was listening to your content, I was like, wow, his content goes far beyond just telling people to eat healthy, right? People could probably see in the 20, 30 minutes that we were talking, where you have this vast amount of clinical knowledge. That's plain to see. When I'm listening to one of your podcast episodes, if I were to close my eyes, I would think you were a doctor. Yep. So I'm curious, was being a dietitian always the plan? Did you want to be any other kind of profession? And if so, why did you choose being a dietitian?
It's a great question. And that's what's fun is I will say dietitians, as you just heard, go to school for 6 to 8 years studying a very specialized area. And so while we are not a doctor, we're a dietitian, we are the specialist of a certain area. And so to have the depth of knowledge, there's definitely something to be said there of think of us as that, we are that person for this world. And it's done, it's med school doesn't do nutrition. I have a body of knowledge that a doctor does not have. And I spent a ton of time studying it. And then from there, you've met me when I'm 12 years into owning a private practice. Yeah. I've met with tens of thousands of patients in my career. I am a voracious learner, lifelong learner, super curious. I consume content at a rate most people would find alarming. I retain it because I find it interesting. And I have the blessed pleasure of getting to talk to tons of people on a weekly basis, which means I get to integrate and articulate all of that information in real time. I'm a mediator of information. That's what a dietitian is, right? We nerd out, learn the studies, and then we digest it and then create little bullet points and ahas that help people understand it. We're mediators of info. And dietitians go into research and they're the researchers. They go down into the community and they disseminate in different ways. But that is my role, is basically mediator of info. So it is my job to voraciously read and learn, understand, and then integrate it in a way that's applicable to people at large. I didn't start with dietitian as title, for sure. So if we zoom back into 15-year-old Andrew, he definitely wanted to go to school and study nutrition. And then he was going to go to med school and be a doctor that focused on nutrition. Got to Pitt. They had a great nutrition program, stayed pre-med through Pitt so that I could go to med school, started shadowing doctors while I was in undergrad, realized that doctor that studied nutrition does not exist. Doctor that works with people on nutrition does not exist. Lifestyle medicine physicians didn't exist when I started doing this stuff. The doctor of dietitian or the doctor of nutrition was a dietitian. That was the closest you could get. So I realized I hated the biomedical model of care. I really did not feel called by the current status, and what I'll call, this was back in 2010. So when I was an undergrad, I did not feel called by our biomedical model of care, and so suddenly becoming a doctor didn't seem like the right move. And I also was fairly charismatic, fairly articulate, very business savvy. So I started to tinker with what were the various areas I might want to go into. There was a stint where I said, you know what, I'll just go get a doctorate in biochemical nutrition, because Lane Norton was he had a blog back in 2010 where he was finishing his doctorate. So it was before he was like the dude. Yeah. He was like a guy, but like I was one of his first fans. Oh, geez. I nerded out to his content when I was 19 years old, and I'm 35 now as context. So I've been following him since day one. But it's to say, I definitely saw that path. I dabbled in the world of research and thought maybe I want to go into that. Did some internships and things in the research world. Found that I was too talkative and too easily bored by monotonous, repetitive things. And so I pivoted from there. And what ended up happening for me is I had finished this undergrad in nutrition, and that meant I was a residency a year away from becoming a dietitian. And I was not 100% sure where I wanted to go. At that time, I thought I wanted to go work in the business world, go into product or research and development, or go into scientific communications. And so I had done some internships at GNC and some internships at a company in the food industry. And I was well received in those areas as a really exceptional speaker of information like this. And so within those types of companies, there's a scientific communications department that's charged with basically disseminating the information at large. And I was very skilled at that. And so I kind of saw myself going, ooh, I'll get this RD thing just so I have it. And then I need to get some sort of like master's in business or something else, but I'm going to become an RD. Then I'm going to go work in R&D in this world and work my way up in the scientific communications and start doing more like industry, government affairs type stuff. So I kind of went down that rabbit hole. Fast forward, jump into my clinical. And one of the first rotations I had was WIC, Women, Infants, Children. And it was in Butler. And so this was 2013. I'm a 22-year-old, 6 foot tall, 200 pound bro getting sent to Butler County to talk to 16-year-old moms about breastfeeding.
How was that?
I thought I was going to hate it, right? Like I was like, man, this is like out of alignment with who I am in every way. Yeah. I loved it, dude. I loved it. I'll never forget little 3-year-old, 78 pounds. And we're trying to figure out, mom's like, I just don't understand. He doesn't eat anything. She didn't know juice had calories. Dude was drinking apple juice instead of water. 64 ounces a day. That'll give a 3-year-old diabetes. Yeah. And it's weird because again, in that moment, uncovering that with her and educating her on that and her realizing that we needed to step that back probably saved that child's life.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, legitimately I'm a 22-year-old bro in Butler County. Wow. Ready to go study nerdy things. And I'm helping these people with like really, really core, staple lifestyle needs. It made me realize that I loved being in people's corner. I loved supporting people. I loved nutrition. And I also really wasn't picky about the type of client that I wanted to see. And so that experience led me to realize that I did want to practice in some way. So I didn't want to just go into the scientific communications R&D world. And And it's what actually led me to say, okay, I'm going to get my master's. I'm going to get it in wellness and human performance, which is my area of interest. And I'm going to start this private practice while I'm getting my master's because I'm ready to go help some people. I'm going to hang a shingle and say, hey, I'm here to help. And I ended up, by the time I graduated from my master's, I had 4 employees, 2 offices, and a career that I had never even dreamed of. Wow. And so I cannot claim that Case Specific was created out of brilliance. It was created out of authenticity, curiosity, and honestly, dumb luck. And you trip your way forward long enough, you're brilliant in people's eyes, which is funny to me.
Well, don't sell yourself short. I mean, I think it's a lot of that is also on the back of extremely hard work and I'm sure a lot of introspection because it's funny like how you're not going to know where life takes you. Like I thought I was going to go into med school, like out of college, but also like I dug myself into a hole in undergrad. And so I had to do some tangible work to make sure my application was competitive enough for medical school.
Worthy of medical school. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I kind of bounced, I'm basically kind of bounced over the past 3-4 years now. I've been bouncing around healthcare, like started first in research and now all the way into the clinical side of things as a patient care technician. And initially with the research, I like research, still like research. But still like I found that the element of practicing medicine, or in your case, practicing dietetics, right? Would that be the correct? Practicing dietetics, that still like allures me, that draws me there. But it's like, you never know. My whole point is like, you never know like how life's going to like redirect you to where you think you're going to go. And then suddenly you realize, oh, this is kind of what I wanted all along.
Yes.
I thought I was going to be an oncologist for the longest time, actually.
Yeah.
And now I'm on, I've settled on longevity as kind of the thing that I want to like, practice. I want to like look into and research, right? Very different from what I thought I was going to do. But
yeah, start to realize that, I mean, there's obviously a massive beauty and need to helping people survive, but there's an understandable desire to get ahead of that and help people thrive.
Heck yeah.
And Absolutely. So we need both. It's right. That's in no way meant to throw shade at doctors that are breaking through and helping people survive tough things. Like we need that, please. People that have the demeanor and the affect and the ability to do that, please keep pouring into that. Holy crap. But there are certain personalities that may be better fit to help people thrive. I am a lifestyle longevity salesman because I am natural, that peppy, excited energy that should be aimed at proactive care. I am not well utilized in a reactive scenario.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which actually, speaking of which, that actually dovetails very nicely into my next question. So there's a ton of different medical professionals out there. It's not necessarily like a strict hierarchy. It's an ecosystem. All these professionals work in tandem to help patients. So how would you say like a dietitian fits into this ecosystem of healthcare?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm going to take a sip of water.
Go for it. Yeah.
Brought to you by Element. No. Work on that sponsorship.
Unofficial sponsor.
Yeah. So I think it depends a little bit on the dietitian. There's the pup.
Hey,
she's hanging. Good girl, Rem. She's just going to
shut your legs. Shut your legs, girl.
She'll literally switch sides and then curl.
As you're saying.
Go ahead, sit. But yeah, so when we think about a dietitian, I think it depends a little bit on what type of dietitian we're talking about. And so dietitians have a variety of hats. There's definitely the most traditional, which is clinical dietitians working in a hospital for medical nutrition therapy. That is going to be supporting cancer. That's going to be supporting burn victims. That's going to be supporting gut issues, irritable bowel disease, IBS, inflammatory conditions, even protocols supporting things like sepsis and other conditions. Viral and bacterial infections have considerations for food. So navigating diet during acute phase, which was what I'd say, the dietitians that help people change the tire, right? If life is a road trip from New York to LA, what I do is I basically help people like get the best gas mileage when they're on the highway.
Okay.
There are clinical dietitians that when you get the flat tire and you have to pull over, they're going to help you change said tire. And so that's 50% of dietitians out there are clinical dietitians working in the acute setting.
Okay. Yeah. So would you say, like, to kind of like take that analogy, you have dietitians that catastrophic things go wrong. Engine blows. No, like, your tire, you get a flat tire, pretty bad viral infection. You got cancer. that's where those dietitians can come in. And would I be correct to assume that those dietitians, you're usually going to find them in the hospital setting?
They're in the hospital. Exactly.
Gotcha.
They're working in a hospital setting. They may be in an outpatient with a hospital, but they're dominantly in the clinically acute setting working. And so 50% of dietitian jobs are in hospitals. That is not well known. And again, that's half. I mean, I'm going to misquote, roughly 100,000 dietitians in the United States. Half of them are in hospitals.
Okay. Wow.
And then you have a fair amount that are in what I'll call it hospital adjacent scenarios, like long-term care clinics. You get into the dietitians that are also going to be represented in outpatient settings with the hospital. So upon discharge, there may be follow-ups with a dietitian to make sure that, there's some sort of attempt to offer considerations for lifestyle when you discharge said patient. Good example is someone with irritable bowel disease, a Crohn's or a colitis. They come into the hospital with a flare-up, and then they get prescribed the medications, they get the inflammation under control, they get to the point where they're not bleeding and dangerous, they get discharged. Well, the difference between changing, basically supporting the medical nutrition therapy to support Crohn's or colitis during an acute flare-up is different than it is to prevent a flare-up in the first place. So their remission diet is something that an outpatient clinician is going to work on.
Right, which is, I would assume that's where clinicians, specific dietitians like maybe you come in, where now instead of, again, to use the car analogy, you have your every service, like every couple of months that you come in and say, hey, like, this is what you're doing, this is what I'm doing. Oh, hey, your engine, if we don't fix that now, then you're probably going to blow up on the side of the road, kind of thing. Like
I'll say prevention. Is that we give those people we give those dietitians a high five. So we aren't that dietitian, but we talk to that dietitian. So that's where next is us. And so that's where you have dietitian in hospital getting someone out of a Crohn's flare up.
Okay.
Then you have the dietitian that says, hey guys, now that the flare up's managed, here's how you work your way back. Here's what to do. Have a nice day.
Okay.
We are the dietitian group that's a pure outpatient experience, which means they knock on our door and say, I know what to do, but how do I do it? How do I follow this diet given 3 kids with soccer practice and singing and MMA and 2 careers and a budget and access to food that's highly variable and workout expectations? And I like to go to the gym, but I'm not quite sure where that fits into all of this. And I've got panic attacks and this feels all really overwhelming to me. That's where we come in. We're the lifestyle specialists. We're the how of it all. We're the troubleshooters. We're the people that turn habits into real actions every day. That's what we do for a living.
I'm going to quote you, actually. You made the metaphor of you're the guys that teach you how to roll the bowling ball.
Correct. Yeah, that's one of my favorites for GLP-1s, but that is true in a lot of things, right? We help people learn to roll the ball, which is, we'll call it their lifestyle habits, right? GLP-1s are a good example. I call those they're the bumpers on the bowling lane. They make life habits easier to do. You still need to roll the ball. And so we are the ones that help people learn to bowl. And we may work alongside some bumpers to get them some confidence. We may prop them up in some way, right? Get one of those weird things that the bowling ball gets to roll down on that you can aim. Like, there's various tools we'll use to help them get better at bowling. But ultimately, we're the ones that equip people with the tools, the support, the knowledge, and the know-how, and basically help them navigate the pitfalls and obstacles and barriers in their day-to-day life. So that is a proactive clinician. And again, yes, sometimes that's people coming into ours from an acute place.
Right. That was going to be my next question is, like, do they come into you from the hospital?
Most people, no. Most clients find us in a proactive stance.
Got it. Okay.
Right? So they're the you of the world that's like, hey, like, I'm like reading a lot about this. I'm super interested and I just like don't know where to start. What's right for me? Right. So I'd call you an optimization client.
Right.
There's the athletes, right? They're already doing the things, but then they want to like take it up another level, right? They may be doing 90% well, but they want to really fine tune that extra 10%. Or you get the people that are hopefully being proactive. Hey, I just got a pre-diabetes diagnosis and I don't want to go on medication and I don't want to be diabetic. Or you get the person that's not in the hospital yet, but they're having GI distress and they're finding out that maybe they shouldn't be having this GI distress all the time. So they're reaching out. Or maybe their physician referred them to us because of something that's newly diagnosed. So you get
it from everywhere, actually. It sounds like you guys are really that middleman.
We are I like to say we're the bridge between proactive and reactive care.
Okay.
And so reactive care being current acute medical model, person shows up with bullet wound, you give them Band-Aid. We are also very integrated into the therapeutic, the physical therapy, the personal training, the other more proactive aspects of life where it's people trying to get healthier. We are also a human that interacts with them. And so we tend to live in the proactive side of, hey, let's optimize and thrive. And then we can also walk across and deal with the acute and help them change the tire. Dietitians are a very unique opportunity when we think about what we're all trying to do, what your interest is recognizing that the biomedical model of care is not the starting point for people's care. It was originally because most people were alive or dead, but now survival is something that we've gotten pretty good at. Thriving is the thing that's next.
Right.
Proactive care, longevity, lifestyle medicine, whatever words you want to use to describe proactive care, dietitians are actually one of the best quarterbacks for that. We are the starting point for that. We're also the one that's adjacent to all of the things, and we're the one that's actually capable of walking both sides of that game, one of which is insurance-based largely, and the other is not. And so we can hang out with the cash-based people and the insurance-based people. We can deal with the optimize and thrive. We can deal with the survives. So it is to say, dietitians are a very unique thing, and case-specific is about meeting people where they are. And so, we work with about 20 different referral types across the reactive and proactive spectrums. And that's before we factor in that a whole lot of people just find us and start their journey with us. And we're a great starting point for someone trying to figure out what it means to live like the healthier them.
That's amazing. And you mentioned longevity, and I think that's a nice segue into the next topic that I wanted to discuss with you. So obviously that is the theme of this podcast, but I think before we actually talk about that specifically, nutrition itself is a very labyrinthian topic.
Yeah, it is.
To say, like, it can feel very confusing for people, myself included. And I think in my opinion, that has to do with how much the science of nutrition, of dieting has changed over the past several decades. So Andrew, like from your perspective as a clinician, as a dietitian, how would you say our understanding has changed over the last couple of decades?
Yeah, I think that it's evolved, that's for sure. I think that it's changed less than people realize. What I'll say is that 95% of core nutrition is the same, but we've gotten really, really interested in the 5%. And so comment being, I don't care whether the food pyramid was a pyramid with bricks, a pyramid with columns, or if it was my plate for the 12 years, it was my plate and no one even knew about it and it was a plate with portions, or now it's an upside down pyramid signaling rebellion, right?
Yeah.
Don't really care which one it is. Every single one of them was make 80% of your plate protein and produce.
Okay.
Literally. 80% of your plate protein and produce. So like if Americans at large could consistently make 80% of their plate protein and produce, we'd be 95% there.
If that's the case, and what's gotten, then if it's as simple, right? Then like what's got it so nebulous? So like, well, I don't know what to eat. Like
no one eats vegetables. The average American consumes one serving of vegetables a week.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if we could get people to eat their vegetables consistently, that literally would solve almost all of the nutrition problems that we spend a whole ridiculous amount of time trying to biohack.
Okay.
We are majoring in the minors. I'm going to steal that from one of my clinicians.
Yeah.
We major in minor things instead of actually getting good at the thing. We are a shortcut society. And so everyone wants to take a pill or a poke or a prod to bypass the core thing, which is you need to eat 5 cups of vegetables and fruits, dominantly vegetables as often as possible every freaking day. Ideally, you need to pair it with a hearty, robust amount of protein. And that requires a fork and a knife and sitting down. It also requires cooking. And the average person does none of those things with any degree of consistency. So in a fast-paced food as a last-minute afterthought, why do we act surprised that we have a grab-and-go convenience society that prioritizes portability, which means no knife and fork, which means no vegetable or protein that's meaningful. Carbohydrates blended with fats. Fats are a homogenizing agent. Carbohydrates are an interfering agent. So one of them makes something ubiquitous and uniform in texture.
Right, that's your fats.
That's your fats. And then the other one keeps it stable.
And it's your carbs.
So you blend fats and carbs, and it's delicious. And it also is exceedingly convenient and portable and stable, which is literally every snack that exists in our society.
So your potato chips, your French fries, your
Cheez-Its,
Cheez-Its.
over and over and over. Cookies, pastries, baked goods, everything that's in a package for the most part is some combo of oil that is homogenizing agent and carbohydrate that is broken down for interference to create a hyper palatable, portable, convenient food. And most people, that is 80% of their diet.
So but this comes to an interesting question, though. So
this is a great rabbit hole.
Yeah,
we're about to go in, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because it comes to a question. It's like, so clear. Okay, if the information is so simple, everybody knows what to do. But you pointed out there was an environment that's kind of incentivizing a certain behavior.
Yeah.
Yet the information is so. I mean, everyone has the internet so readily available. I'm curious, like, what do you think?
I know what to do. I just need to do it.
Right. It's almost like people. Do you think in
people
your practice
struggle with the how, so they need a business that helps them navigate the how?
Yes.
Yeah, I built an entire company on it. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious. Like, is there also an element of there's so much information of the 5% that's out there that's also what's more attractive and versus
the average social media influencer is a generationally wealthy trust fund baby with ample free time and plenty of access to fruits and vegetables, likely prepared by their own chef. And so they have the time to worry about the 5%. Their hormetic lounges and the red light therapy and the cold plunges and their crazy workouts and mobility segments.
I've never done any of those.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be fair, I love all of them. I'm not critiquing them, but if that's where people are starting, they're not actually pursuing, it's right things, wrong order. So if you have somebody who is, again, now we have Instagram, which we now think is the normalization of life. And the problem is Instagram is led by influencers who have a disproportionate amount of time, money, and resources, which means they are portraying a life that 99.9% of people will
never have.
And so they're then exploring access to the things that 99.9% of people don't have. And then it's creating this disproportionate perception that those are the things that are actually needed.
Okay.
When would I love everybody to have the life that allowed them to take the time and do hormetic experiences? Of course I would. But do most people need to eat vegetables to get 90% of the benefits that would actually preface that? Yeah. But again, it seems way more sexy to jump into a cold plunge.
It does.
Right? It feels way better to go and do some crazy D1 level workout at a boot camp. Mm-hmm. It seems way more enjoyable to sit in a sauna and sweat than it is to allocate time to get food, make food, serve food, eat food, digest food. It's a slower pace of life. And to be fair, the answer is to integrate it and to figure it out. But it's not sexy. I'm not going to become a billionaire saying this. I'm not going to have a lot of private jets or boats for this. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean it isn't freaking true.
Right. It's something I've talked about with, I think it was on my third episode where I made the analogy of like, there are these like foundational like granite blocks that you have to kind of knock out before you get to like everything else, which is
keystones,
sleep, what you eat, your diet, right? And then, exercise. Now this episode is kind of focusing on the food, the diet portion of those like foundational pillars. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I also kind of fallen victim to that, like just as a social media consumer as well, not just producer. And you see that they get all excited about these like diet trends, like, and that's actually another question I want to ask you about, which is you see all these like diet trends, like keto, you see paleo, you see carnivore, right? But apparently there were also other ones in the past I weren't aware of until I did research. Like there were the Atkins diet, the Okinawa diet, the blood type diet, like you eat in accordance to what your blood type is.
Have you heard of Banting? Banting was a diet invented in the 1800s. Dieting has existed for hundreds of years.
What's Banting?
So Banting was the actual doctor that came up with it. It was essentially basically a fasting and low carb diet from like 30 something. Yeah.
So you just fast and not eat like
carbs.
Okay.
We've been talking about this for like centuries, dude.
Thousands of years.
Centuries, dude.
Damn. Yeah. Okay.
So like dieting is not a new concept because what you put in your mouth absolutely matters. Most people aren't doing the core put in your mouth. And so a lot of this neurotic stuff is interesting. It's fascinating. It's relevant, but it's not necessarily the actual starting point. And it ends up serving as a distraction from most people's real needs, essentially.
So I guess that's what they get wrong, is that they're not starting at the correct starting. They're not at the correct starting point. I'm curious though, is there anything some of those diets get right?
They're all 80% protein and produce.
That's it.
Literally every single diet that's out there is 80% protein and produce.
Okay.
Over and over and over. And that's when you work with tens of thousands of patients and you do this thing enough, you can't unsee the zoomed out version of this. Every diet that exists is a template that worked for someone. The question is, will that template work for you? And the question then is it something, when I say will it work for you, that will integrate into your life seamlessly, allow you to do it consistently, and then bring you the desired results as a side effect?
Well, I was going to focus on the results part. It's like, first of all, what are even the results that you were looking for?
That's a great question with a very personalized answer, right? You got to ask the client that. What's the diet trying to do for you? Is it trying to give you more energy? Is it trying to improve your inflammation? Is it trying to shift or improve your metabolic or endocrine health? Is it creating a caloric deficit that's allowing you to, again, shift your fat cells so that there's less adipokine secretion, which means your fat signals get quieter, and then exercise allows your muscle signals to get louder so that you can have less store and more burn and basically shift your metabolic discussion that's going on inside. So it really depends on what the diet's trying to do. And so a ketogenic diet is a diet that reduces carbohydrates to the point that it mutes insulin. So is your insulin too loud? Is your insulin the boy who cried wolf, which is to say it's been elevated so long that you now have resistance to it? Well, if so, then a lower carbohydrate diet that helps quiet your insulin may be a really important part of this conversation. Downside, when you cut carbs, you also remove leptin out of the equation. Leptin is your satiety hormone. Other thing it does, it's the thing that says food is here, burn, baby, burn. So it's the precursor to your metabolism burning. So if you do keto too long, what predictively happens is your insulin goes down, you lose some weight because your Paul Revere food is coming, don't burn fat goes away.
Right.
So then all of a sudden fat burn happens, but then your leptin goes back down too. And because carbs spike leptin stops driving, which is where people on keto are like, oh my gosh, I'm not hungry ever. It's like, yeah, your leptin's gone. Like it's just null, it's neutral. Well, that means your metabolism starts to slow down over a period of time. And at some point, usually 6 months in, people on keto hit a plateau. That's the point at which their leptin is no longer signaling their metabolism to burn. So then they have to do a carb cycle to add carbohydrates back in, and that will resuscitate metabolic. But if that person didn't work on their relationship with food, they're just going to shift from I'm on keto to, oh, I'm failing because I'm eating carbs, and they're going to start pounding cereal and mac and cheese and miss the point that I don't think sweet potatoes and blueberries were the problem, bro. I think the fact that you didn't eat the produce was the problem, bro, right? And so once again, we sit here and recognize, is ketogenic eating a potential 8 to 12 week metabolic reset as a part of an overarching process in a human that has dominant insulin resistance? You bet your butt. Is it the whole story? No. Diets work for a certain subset in a certain circumstance. And man, is it cool if you have someone nerdy like me that knows who, what, when, and how.
Right.
Yeah.
And the why too. It's like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Because I think, to use that example, it sounds to me that person in that example would have been better off served to do keto for a period of time to achieve a certain goal,
almost exclusively,
rather than they say it's something they just do. Which is what I wanted to ask you, is that, are diets tools to achieve certain outcomes, or are they just lifestyles we adopt?
So fad diets, well, let's differentiate, because diet in general, right? Going back to what diet is what you eat. So our fad diets, which would be templated dietary patterns that are projected to do something for you. Pretty much all of them are temporary. It's very rare that any one of those fad diets, like a keto or a carnivore, is actually built on longevity. They are likely a mechanism that is a short-term understand and a long-term kind of flail and fail for you.
Okay.
And so that is where a keto and a carnivore, both of them have the same problem, right? They create a system, a scenario where they really reduce insulin, which in an obesogenic, hypercaloric society that has insulin resistance can have short-term like reversal benefits, but then they overcompensate, which means they may downregulate the right things, but then they also start to downregulate the wrong things on a slower, lower, longer time horizon. And so in keto, you end up at the reality where leptin gets slow, so then metabolism kind of stalls, and you end up in this kind of like dormant state, which makes sense because ketosis is a starvation state diet, right? It's there's not access to energy, so we're going to conserve.
Yeah, and you make the ketones and from your fats and stuff, and then that's your backup.
Exactly. Right. And carnivore is fairly similar. It's just a bit more protein dense. Well, protein getting used as energy goes through the alanine cycle, and the alanine cycle is one of the flags to starvation in our body. If your body's using protein to survive, things are not okay.
That's how you get a sarcopenia. Like, is it sarcopenia would be the
muscle
right? It's
wasting
muscle
and all that
wasting,
kind of thing.
but because it's breaking down muscle to get glucose.
It can. Now, in a carnivore diet, your protein intake's so high, it's not breaking down the muscle, it's breaking down the protein in your diet.
You eat,
But using amino acids and converting them to sugar, which is what happens, it's a gluconeogenesis process. Converting protein to sugar is one of the least efficient metabolic processes. It costs 2 ATP and makes 1. Remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. Yes.
Right? So if your body is being forced to use the least efficient energy system, it is going to start to put you in power save mode. So what most happens is first few months, massive reductions in inflammation because of the insulin shift and because of the caloric deficit and all sorts of other things.
Yay, inflammation's down.
And then 4 months in, the guy's testosterone levels crash because their body's in starvation mode. And at some point, the body's being told it's not safe to procreate. So like really interesting, and mechanistically, could we hear where that could be a tool in the toolbox? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every diet is a tool in my toolbox, but like who needs it, when they need it, and why they need it, and then how long they need it matters. Every single one of those restrictive diets is going to need to go back to a more neutral reality where there is some intentional carbohydrate, not excessive, some intentional fats with quality in mind, some intentional protein with adequacy in mind, and it's going to come and look more like some sort of paleo style of eating is what we'd get towards, plus carbs based on activity level.
Yeah, and it also sounds like a sustainable diet actually would be something you can eat on a long term, like a long enough time frame that's not, you're not going to go through heavy dips of energy or indigestion or what have you, and then you can actually alter the diet somewhat based on the fly. So let's say if you wanted to alter your diet somewhat, you wouldn't go full keto necessarily, but you just, all right, let's make this more, I guess, keto-like, right? And so I can decrease like inflammation, so I can maybe lose a little bit of weight. But then that's the whole point of being versatile, right? Is that we're not trying to ramrod ourselves into one corner. It's can we just be sustained upon a long enough time frame to meet our goals, and can we switch it if need be?
Well said. It's rare the extremes are actually useful for most people. They're a tool that can be used periodically. Eating 5 servings of produce every day reduces calories and increases fiber, and will, as a result, if a way to think about it is if you piled your food up on a table every day and suddenly 5 cups of it was produce,
right?
What goes missing? 5 cups of non-produce. So we can hear there'd be a calorie swing, there'd be a fiber up scenario, there'd be a fat and carbohydrate down scenario. So did that person need to actually go keto, or did they just need to eat more protein and produce?
Which circles back to your whole point, is like if we had just eaten more protein and veggies, then 85% of the problems would be solved.
We would have gotten the results in a slightly slower time horizon, but done so in a more sustainable way that they didn't just do for 3 to 6 months, but literally could practice for a lifetime. So like, is it the long way, or is it actually the short way? Right? Right. At the end of the day, going keto and then having to back your metabolism out of keto and then having to learn to eat well. So you like go extreme and then you have to compensate back and then you have to learn to do the thing.
Versus just
you just learn to do the thing.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's just, it's kind of like you're going reverse to go forward.
Yeah.
Which actually kind of brings me to now, if we want to eat for like longevity, and when I say longevity, I don't just mean like how long we live, but it's also like the quality of those years is like, well, like, you know, I see a lot of patients, and as in my position as a patient care technician, a lot of people in their older years, their quality of life is just, to be honest, is pretty terrible. When we look at a diet that we can construct to optimize our health span, how would you approach each macronutrient for a diet like that?
If you don't mind, I want to zoom out first.
Sure, go for it.
I think it can be helpful.
Floor is yours.
So longevity, right? Okay, and you said it beautifully, not just trying to live longer, but live better longer. Let's think about this for a sec. So we have the human body that we currently think can live to 120, but the average American lives to 78. So we're also basically reverse engineering this question. What's causing those 42 years of differentiation?
Yes.
Is diet one of those things? Yeah, no doubt. Let's also think back though, 100 years ago, before we had all the processed foods, were people living to 120? No, they were living to 60.
Very rarely.
Yeah, even more rarely than now.
Yes.
We're living longer now than 50 years ago and 100 years ago.
Agreed,
So
yes.
it's to say diet as it's changed from what it was, which to be fair, there was like not enough food, but the quality of food was good, to now there's an abundance of food and the quality is questionable, hasn't really been the big thing that's changed. So largely the 120 goal, I'm going to say nutrition is a part of it, but it's not the majority part of it.
Okay.
Things kill people that aren't diet, right? And so we've got the obvious, like the planes, trains, and automobiles and all that good stuff. But even things like cancers, it's like the presence of those are not exclusively diet. And so I want to make sure we say this because I think current longevity is trying to make diet seem like it's this panacea.
Okay, I see what
And
you're
that
saying.
is just objectively false. That is
It's
not
a component.
It's absolutely a component. And when we think about like basically lifespan versus health span, I would argue that diet is more important to the health span than it is the lifespan to some degree. So can a good diet add years to your life? Yes.
Yes.
But is it more likely to add quality to the years of your life? Yeah, that way more.
Well, that's good because I mean, technically we achieved, I don't know, maybe you actually be the person to ask this, but like, I don't know when we broke that 70, 80 year of lifespan mark, but I think we did that at a point where medical technology just reached it broke through a certain plateau. And now with the advancements we have, like we don't have to use the iron lung anymore. Like we don't have to like, do all these crazy things. Like you can go to the hospital and you reasonably are going to be, it's reasonable to expect that you will be able to live till you're 70 and you're 80. Yep. Nowadays,
it was mostly antibiotics.
Like
if we're going to oversimplify it, but mostly antibiotics is what did
broad
that.
spectrum antibiotics. Exactly.
Most of the medicine since then has done optimizations to subsets, which has helped target certain pops that were not living as long. Think about like type 1 diabetics used to have a lifespan of 15, and now they can live to 80 because of insulin pumps. So you can go through all the different diagnoses, but it's all to say I wanted to start with that because when we think about nutrition, it's absolutely important. But I also don't want to, for a second, try and sell people on this gun to their head. If you don't eat this way, then this. Yeah. Because that's a lot of the more, a lot of my least favorite influencers in this longevity and nutrition space.
Absolutely.
They act like this nutritional reality is going to suddenly help you live to 150.
Like no incidence of cancer, 100%. Like that's also not what we're, unfortunately, we wish that would be the case.
What percentage of cancer is related directly to your diet? And it's a percentage, but is it a majority? Probably not. There are so many other environmental factors that play
It's a multi-variable issue.
Correct. And the comment I'll make is let's look across populations, right? So like look at India, look at Japan, look at various nations with higher lifespans than us and better diets than us. But it's to say, once again, their better diets are giving them 1 year, 2 years, 3 years.
Actually, in the case of India, like just, because I talk about my mom's family, side of the family, they actually run like a nutrition supplement company, like an Ayurvedic food company, and we were talking about this concept of when the British actually had colonized India, and they had actually taken a lot of the better food sources for themselves, is what it is. But what happened is then the food that was left was a high carb, high fat, low protein diet that, like that's all you could eat in that time. And that was what you had to keep you from starvation. And so over time, that kind of did change somewhat of the life expectancy or like kind of what we were susceptible to. So like diet was a part of it, but then it's also like the environment. It's like probably wasn't the cleanest environment back then. All these other things that came into play. All these other things came into play. So, but yeah, like,
and so within the U.S., the other piece that's worth looking at is we talk about the average lifespan 78.
Yeah.
But what's the average lifespan of Americans that make over 100,000 a year? It's over 80. What's the average lifespan of Americans that make over 250,000 a year? It's over 83.
This is socioeconomic issue as well.
Socioeconomic is the highest correlated predictor.
If you have more money,
you have
you're
more money,
wealthier.
you have better access to all the things.
Right.
And so you start to realize like, yeah, this is, I don't want to poo-poo food, but I want to start by like, let's talk about the thing.
The thing,
and
yes.
then we'll dig in from there.
Absolutely. I love it.
One of my other fun anecdotes, right, is like, so a lot of the data on saunas, right? Like, oh, like saunas add years to your life. It's because saunas are most dominantly used in Scandinavian countries.
And what other things are the Scandinavians doing, basically?
Correct. And you go, oh, well, the average Scandinavian comes from generational wealth, and so the wealth of those countries, those were the kings and queens for 2,000 years.
That's a good point. Yeah.
The average Scandinavian works 34 hours a week. And they have like a very like lifestyle focus. Is it the sauna, or is it they have a lifestyle that encourages a sauna?
And the sauna maybe helps, but like
the
sauna only helps when you have all those other things dialed in.
Yeah. If you're a 60-hour a week American that lives the American lifestyle that I'm going to hone in on here in a second, because this data is going to be useful for the rest of our conversation. If you're a 60-hour a week overworked American with typical American habits, is a sauna going to be a cool thing for you? Sure. Is it going to radically change your life? No. What's more interesting is the things you're going to have to do to fit it in your life are going to force you to slow down. So is it the sauna, or is it that you're going to have to fit it in your life, which means you're going to have to calm down, slow down, cut meetings, and live a slower paced life, which means your stress levels are going to go down. So like, it's just to say that it's multifactorial, to put it mildly, my friend. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's then shift from there. While we're talking about averages, the average American consumes 3,500 calories per day. The average American takes 2,000 steps per day, which is a mile, noting that 10,000 steps is correlated with like the happiest and healthiest humans. Mm-hmm. So they get 20% of the exercise they need, which means if they were being fed appropriately, the average female at that activity level needs 1,600 to 1,800 calories. The average male needs 2,200 to 2,400 calories. So the average female is eating twice what she needs, and the average male is eating 70% more than he needs. The average American consumes a serving of vegetables per week. The average American consumes a serving of fruit or less per day. The average American eats fast food 8 times a week. The average American consumes 4 liters of soda per week. So, what can we do to help Americans live longer?
Yeah.
Get them to eat the right amount of calories, because the average amount they're eating is causing extreme amounts of body fat deposition, which pushes them out of an appropriate body fat percentage. The fat is an organ. It's an essential organ. It's very good for us in the right amount. But just like any other organ in our body, all our organs are departments in a company that are sharing resources. Mm-hmm. And the bigger the department, the louder it is and the more resources it gets. So when your fat cells go bigger, your adipokines, which are your fat signalers, get louder. They start to override the system, and then they start to hoard resources and pull things. And that is where insulin resistance comes from. That is where all sorts of metabolic issues come from. That's where endocrine, basically out of balance hormonal issues come from. Mm-hmm. So we can hear where it's, we are like massively overeating calories. That is leading to adiposity, that is creating illness and chronic disease. So the average American literally needs to eat less. Literally, it's quote unquote that simple. We live in a society that definitely encourages food. We live in a society that makes it super easy, accessible, abundant, delicious, all of those things. But what's funny is most people, it's a volume versus density problem, which is to say, if you and I sit down hungry and eat a bag of chips, the entire bag will go away and we won't feel full, because the volume is not there. Mm-hmm. We need a certain amount of food to feel full. A meal should be 3 cups of food. Well, 3 cups of M&Ms is an obscene amount of calories, and you're not going to feel super satisfied because it's lacking core nutrients and all of that. 2 cups of vegetables and a cup of rice with 6 ounces of meat is a very large amount of food
That'll fill you up.
and has 10% of the calories of the 3 cups of M&Ms. So
also the structure of that meal, like the fiber is going to fill you up, the protein is going to fill you up. It's actually going to, I know, and this would be like another rabbit hole, probably another podcast discussion of itself on the quality of the food. But like, I think from what I understand, like that the food today, the potato chips, like they're designed for you to eat more of them.
Yep.
And so they're designed for you to signal the hunger like mechanism in your body, not necessarily the satiety, which is usually triggered, and correct me if I'm wrong, by that fiber, by that protein, and that helps you fill you up more.
Correct. And so that's protein and fiber drive satiety because they slow digestion down. And so carbohydrates and fats, particularly easy to digest carbohydrates and fats, don't require as much digestion, so they don't drive fullness because the system doesn't have to work as hard. So you basically get all the food with no slow mechanism, so you don't stop eating. You just eat and eat and eat. And eat. Again, our body's meant to crave energy. So a food that is carbs, fats, and salt, which are the 3 things our body needs the most of, in a body that for thousands of years was spending an obnoxious amount of time and energy trying to find those things.
Because we were in a starvation environment.
And now can do it with no effort whatsoever. And those foods aren't just accessible, they're also the most affordable, and they're the tastiest. We live in a society where we pick basically delicious over nutritious and we pick convenience, right? And so we can see where it's real easy to overeat, but that is actually the core thing that is killing Americans, is overeating. And when you start to say, oh, well, it's seed oils, not necessarily. Seed oils are a part of those hyperpalatable foods that are being overeaten, but when they're eaten in a calorically adequate amount, not really a problem. It's sugar. It's like, well, because it's eaten in a hyper quantity. It's a quantity issue over and over and over. And the way you get rid of that quantity issue is not by subtraction, but by addition, which is to say, if you just say, don't eat those things, well, now their diet has gotten smaller, but they're hungry and not better off for it. If you instead add things, which is to say, let's add protein, let's add produce, that is how those things go down, right? So a person who's eating enough protein and eating enough produce is going to have the protein and fiber to drive the satiety, which is the mechanism that portions those other things. And so I can either tell you to not ever eat chips again, or I can tell you to only eat them in a quarter-sized Ziploc bag alongside an 8-ounce turkey sandwich and a salad. I can tell you to never eat pizza again, or I can tell you to eat a grilled chicken salad first. If you sat down hungry on a Friday night with pizza in front of you, you're probably going to eat the box. I would. If you sit down and you eat 8 ounces of grilled chicken with a big old pile of lettuce first, you're probably going to eat 2 slices.
Yeah.
And so we went from a 3,500 calorie box of pizza that's pure fat and carbs.
Carbs, yeah.
So all energy, body doesn't need it. Again, needed 2,200 and you gave it 35. To sitting down and eating a 300 calorie salad and then 500 calories of pizza. So that 3,500 calorie meal became 800 and the protein is there and the fiber is there. So then that 800 is going to break down over 3 to 5 hours instead of 1 hour. And so you're going to be full longer. You're going to actually get to use the energy. You're not going to drive insulin up. So you're not going to say food is here, burn, don't burn fat. You're going to completely change how that food is received by prioritizing it. And so when I say that making 80% of your diet protein and produce is the answer, it's checkmate every way you want to have this conversation.
Right.
And longevity is literally, we shouldn't talk about anything else until that's the baseline. So if you then want to, if we're then talking to the people doing that,
right,
I'm happy to nerd out.
Okay.
But less than 1% of people are doing that.
Right. Which is, we talk about our foundational foundational pillars, like that needs to get knocked out first.
Yeah. If everyone did that, 90 would be almost guaranteed from a nutrition lens. Planes, trains, automobiles, freak accidents. But it's to say our lifespan would go up and quality of life insanely if we could just do that.
Yeah, because it seems like those foods that will fill you up are actually taking up more real estate of the plate, which then is going to crowd out everything else anyway. Which is why I made the face. I was like, wait, adding, like, what is he talking about? But if you add those things in, they're going to naturally over time.
Let's just say for fun that you need to feel full. You need 12 cups of food a day. Well, if you made 6 of those cups produce and 3 of those cups protein, you have 3 left to eat whatever the heck you want. good luck overeating. But if you eat 12 cups of super caloric, hyper palatable things, you're going to have too many calories. And so it's literally an energy conversation. And it comes from the problem being that the core things that need to be eaten aren't getting eaten. And as a result, the things that are meant to be side dishes, pizza is a side dish, right? Pizza, a slice of pizza has the same macros as a cup of rice with a tablespoon of olive oil in it. Would you ever sit down and eat a cup of rice with oil on it and call it dinner? No, but we some reason do that with pizza all the time. And then we act surprised that we eat 6 slices of it. It's not pizza's not bad for you. We just eat it like idiots. And that's almost true. That's true for almost everything, right? Okay. Cookies, ice cream, pizza, pasta, cake, like most of the foods that people say are bad, they eat it incorrectly.
So, okay, so it's a portion issue. Yep. And then it's also, if we just include the produce and the protein, so it's also like it is a macronutrients that will kind of just exclude all the things that are actually going to drive your weight up.
If you don't eat the protein and the produce, reducing the portion is a willpower.
It's a willpower issue.
If you add the protein and the produce, it's a natural phenomenon.
Which is like, why do things if you have to put effort into it? Like usually effort's good, but like let something work for you instead of like you having to like work against it. But I think like, you can zoom in for a second because let's start with the protein and the produce then. So sure. Because you said like we kind of gotten that clarification, that context out of the way. So because I did want to ask you, like, then if we dive into protein itself, like is all protein made equal when we're talking Healthspan?
So when we're talking Healthspan, let me pause. There are incomplete proteins that will not serve you as well. Okay. But one thing that we need to know before we say this is protein is a chain of amino acids.
Right.
And there are 9 that we can't make in our body. And so you need to be eating protein sources that are those 9. Those 9 are most bioavailable in animal sources. When you get into vegetarian and plant-based proteins, you usually are missing 1 or 2 of the 9, which is why beans and rice have to be paired together because one's low in methionine, the other's low in lysine, which are 2 of the 9. So if you pair them together, you basically reduce your limiting amino acid. So if you're talking about a plant-based diet, then yeah, there's some considerations for like inadequate or eating a diet that is so repetitive that you're missing 1 of the 9. But if you're eating animal sources, we're not worried about that.
We're not worried about that.
It's more of an adequate protein. If you're getting enough protein, which is to say enough grams total, we can trust that those grams are being broken down into the appropriate piles of the 9 so that those 9 can go do the rest of the things they need to do.
And then for fats, I know like I hear like eat your omega-3s, right? Whether it's through fish or through your supplementations. Why are omega-3s like a good, like why do they say like eat those?
Yeah. So do you remember your inflammatory and anti-inflammatory cascade where it was the leukotrienes, prostaglandins, and eicosanoids?
It's coming back to me now.
Yeah. Those are stimulated by omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. And so omega-6s are an inflammatory, a pro-inflammatory system, which is a good thing, right? When you go work out and tear your muscles apart.
You actually want the inflammation.
You want the inflammation acutely because the inflammation is what pushes water and nutrients to the muscle to repair it. Too much inflammation can then obviously be a problem.
Or inflammation across a long enough time span.
Correct. But acute inflammation, very important. So you want some omega-6s for that reason. Seed oils are high in omega-6s. Omega-3 is the anti-inflammatory. It's the balance to that cascade. So it is the thing that then flushes the inflammation.
Okay.
In a population of people that you're supposed to have oh God, I'm blanking. My brain is not thinking of the ratio. Is it a 10-to-1 omega-3 to or omega-6 to omega-3? 8 to 10 to 1 roughly.
Is it usually you want the one that's going to be the anti-inflammatory more often than not?
It's smaller.
It's
like
smaller.
In that ratio, it's like you need 10 to 1, the omega-6 to the omega-3. We don't need as much omega-3 as people think. But let me talk about this in the terms of grams because this can be useful, right? So the average person benefits from 3 grams of omega-3s a day. So a fish oil supplement, right? 3,000 milligrams, that's going to be 3 grams of omega-3s. That's 3 grams of fat. So if a diet is going to someone that's eating 2,400 calories a day, they probably need 70 to 80 grams of fat.
Okay.
3 of those 70 to 80 should be omega-3.
So just under half of the grams can come from omega-3s?
No, 3 of 70.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think you said 37.
Yeah.
Three of 70.
3 of 70.
So okay, not even like a.
So you and
not
I,
even just that.
and this will be fun. You and I probably need 80 grams of fat per day to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
3 of those 80 should be omega 3s. About 15 to 25 of those should be omega 6s, and then the rest should be monounsaturated MUFAs, and then also saturated fats, less than 10% saturated. So we're saying less than 10 grams should be saturated,
Okay.
and then the remaining 25 to 30 would be monounsaturated. Avocado has that ratio built into it. Nuts and seeds have that ratio built into it. Seed oils are mostly the omega 6, so they're heavier on the 6 and lower on the mono, and they have normal amounts of saturated, but they're a little lower on the MUFA, and they're a little lower on the omega.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the average American doesn't consume 80 grams of fat a day.
It's
The average
way more
American
than that.
consumes 150 grams of fat.
Oh,
a day.
I didn't know it was that much.
So is the problem the seed oil, or is it the abundance of the fatty acids that are present?
Which circles back to the whole.
Yes, and then
portion
from
size,
there,
yes.
does them consuming 6 grams of omega-3s somehow balance out the 150 gram excess that's causing
Okay.
adiposity to create and is creating adipose, blah, 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 right?
blah,
Cascade. So it's the overabundance. It's not the ratio. And so it's to say that most people do need to eat more omega-3s, but that's a small shift. Most people need to eat less omega-6s, but they need to eat less fat in general. And then from there, ideally, it's a really, really nice blend of the saturated, the mono, the poly, and then within the poly, the 3 and 6.
Okay.
Things like avocados, nuts, seeds, olives, fish, all of those things have really, really good omega-3 ratio to their omega-6 and their saturated and their MUFA. And so those things are going to really support all the fatty acids and balance them appropriately. Most people have a ratio of omega-6 to 3 that's out of balance, but it's not even that the omega-3 is low. It's that the omega-6 is just absurdly high because they're overeating crap.
And crap is high in abundance of omega 6s. Because what's funny is
But
that
that's not that omega 6s are bad, right? You start to hear where it's like, dude, it's not that we don't need them. It's that you're eating way too many of them because you don't eat vegetables.
Which again circles back, right?
Over and over
and over and over. Right? It's a portion issue. It's a portion issue. It's a simultaneous portion issue, and then you not eating the things that's going to reduce your overall calorie consumption anyway. Okay. Well, so that's protein. That's fats.
Mm-hmm.
Now we go to carbs. We just talked about how we can actually technically exclude all the carbs, like the excess ones. But I often hear to help with your diet, you should eat, don't eat your simple carbohydrates like your white bread. You should eat your complex carbohydrates. And so when people say that, what does that mean?
Yeah, love this. Your body, it's for those people that loved the Barbie movie, your brain runs on glucose. Your brain uses sugar. Glucose is the most simple form of sugar that our brain uses. Our brain runs on glucose. So simple carbs is a really vague term, so I'm glad you asked it. We have monosaccharides like glucose and fructose, which are basically single sugars. Those are what are just used by our body. Our body converts pretty much every other sugar to glucose. So fructose has to go into the liver and go through the hexose monophosphate shunt to be converted to glucose, which is why an abundance of fructose can overwhelm the liver, cause liver stress, and create all sorts of problems. But it is to say that our body's goal when it eats carbohydrates is to break that carbohydrate down into glucose so that our brain and our muscles can use it. Mm-hmm. There are monosaccharides, which is, we'll call it basically glucose or glucose adjacent. There are disaccharides, things like sucrose, which is table sugar. That is a fructose and a glucose together in a molecule, right? So our body has to break that in half and use the glucose and then convert the fructose. You have oligosaccharides, which is 3 to 10 sugar molecules clustered together. And then you have complex
carbohydrates, which is, I'm assuming,
some
it's just
10 to 1,000.
Okay.
Fiber is basically giant clusters that are really hard to break down. All of these, think of them as little chains on a chain link fence. The bigger the chain combo, the harder it is for the body to break down, aka the longer it takes. So that is where you eat sugar. It's in your bloodstream in minutes, seconds to minutes. You eat oatmeal, which is a blend of fiber and other complex and at the lowest oligosaccharide. It takes hours to break that down. So white bread, let's double back to that one. That is almost all oligosaccharides and disaccharides. So it's going to hit the bloodstream pretty quick because it's going to digest pretty quick.
Okay.
That's not good or bad. The question is, do you need the carbohydrates with any degree of urgency? And once again, the average American, we'll just use quick numbers because this can be useful. 2,400 calories a day, which would be good quality calorie goal for most men to aim at without activity in mind. So if we're just saying lower activity level dude, let's try and get him at 24 just for fun. 150 grams of protein, might be more depending on the dude, but let's once again, 150 grams of protein. 150 grams of protein has 600 calories. So of the 2,400, 600 of it is protein, right? So now that's 25% of the diet is protein, 1,800 remain. That 1,800 is supposed to be a combo of fat and carbs. We just talked about 80 grams of fat from a dude, right?
So,
80 times 9 is 720, just for quick math. Right. So now of that 1,800, 720 of it's fat. That leaves us with 1,080 left. 1,080 is 260 grams of carbohydrates. Cool. So 2,400 calories, 260 grams of carbs. Ideally, 30 to 40 of that is fiber. So we've got 220 that's going to be some type of carbohydrate. If it's oatmeal, you're going to be full as hell. If it's pixie sticks, you're going to be hypoglycemic and hungry because of your body's response. So is the white bread good or bad? Depends on what else is the protein right? Is the fat right? Is the fiber right? Is that carbohydrate needed with any degree of urgency? Now let's just for fun go back to the average American, 3,500 calories. So the average American consumes like 100 grams of protein. So 400 of that 35 is protein. So we got 3,100 left. That 3,100 is pure carbohydrate and fat. The average American consumes less than 10 grams of fiber, not the 30 to 40 that we're trying to aim at. And so we're sitting here saying the average American is consuming 3,000 calories of pure energy instead of 1,800. So let's just for fun say that the 150 grams of fat is the number. 150 grams of fat is 1,350 calories. So the average American's consuming 1,700-ish calories from carbohydrates, which is 425 grams. And so they're eating double the carbs and double the fats that they need. The doubling is the core issue. And do things like white bread make it a whole lot easier to eat more? Yes. If you're eating appropriately, can it fit in your diet? Yes. So that is where the actual problem lies. Carbohydrates you need fiber. They do drive satiety if they're more fibrous and slower digesting. But again, I'm training for a high rocks right now. So you
need the carbs.
Oh my God, yes. And so do I eat 200? You bet your butt, that and then some. I'm closer to that 400 mark. And when I'm in the middle of a workout or right around a workout, you better bet your butt I'm hitting sugar. And so carbohydrate is a tool in a toolbox. There are no bad carbs. There are just carbs that are utilized for various metabolic circumstances. The average American needs about 130 grams of carbs to fuel their brain, and then they need another 100 or so to fuel their day-to-day activity. If they're more active, they need more than that, but the average American isn't active enough to need the carbs they're consuming. So they then
the activity level is actually also a driving factor of which is going to necessitate how much carbs you actually need anyway.
And that excessive carbohydrate then creates an environment where glycogen stores get maximized and insulin is abundant. So then the body's in a storage mode, and then all the excess fats being eaten are just default stored because they don't need excess fats because they've got carbs, which are a much more readily available fuel. So then eventually glycogen stores get full, which is short-term carb stores. And then once those are full, carbs will convert to fat to store, and the fats are storing as fat, which that is literally the mechanism of obesity from caloric excess.
Right. And I can actually share a personal story where it didn't go that far for me, but what was happening was my job in biobanking. I did so before I had my PCT job. I was a biobanking lab technician. Mostly sedentary job. You're either at the lab desk or you're at at your little office desk kind of doing work, or you're kind of standing around. But unlike my PCT job where you're pretty much on your feet a lot of the time. So what would happen is I would eat a carb heavy lunch and then I would have that insulin spike and I just would feel sleepy as heck. Yeah. It was terrible. I mean, like, why are you sleeping on the job? I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm just sitting here at this computer.
It's actually CCK syndrome. Yeah, so cholecystokinin, which is
okay.
Cholecystokinin is a part of our digestive cascade. It spikes high when you eat too much at once, whether that's carbs or fats. That's actually the big thing is people blame carbs all the time because we eat such a carb-rich diet. But it's also true if you eat excessive amounts of dietary fats. Think about like eat heavy fatty meats and it's like, I got that itis, I'm tired, right? Same concept. Cholecystokinin is the thing that redirects blood flow to the stomach to help support your excess.
Okay.
So that wasn't that you were eating carbs, that was you were eating too much energy in general, carbs or fats or whatever, too much food at once. Your body goes, whoa, we need extra blood to the stomach. And that means pulling it away from the brain. And it literally, CCK drives a process that makes you want to go horizontal. So it puts you to sleep because if you're asleep, then your resource allocation can go straight to stomach and you'll digest it quickly. And so that's where you'll take like a 10-minute post-food nap and then you wake up feeling great. That is CCK driving blood to the stomach to basically task your body with breaking down your excess. Once again, if you're eating appropriately, wouldn't happen.
Right.
It's wild.
But now in my PCT job though, like I eat and then I'm back at it where it's like I'm taking somebody else's vitals and blood sugar, funny enough, or like another patient needs, to get out of the chair. Point is I'm on my feet. There's activity, there's stimulus, there's a need for that sugar to be in my blood and be broken down. So I don't feel that.
It goes straight to the bloodstream.
Correct. I don't feel that drop. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So
pretty wild how that works.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, that's the benefit of GLUT4, like you said. That GLUT4 is the hormone that because you're active, it signals and said, no, bring that here as fast as humanly possible. And then your body can do its best with it. If you overeat, in that instance, you're going to then be more likely, like you're going to like cramp up and feel awful when you're walking around. So the other thing is when you have an active job like that, you end up eating less because your body doesn't have the same amount of hunger. That's why we have to have things like Cliff Bars for people when they hike. Like when you're in the middle of a hike going up a hill and your heart rate's 120, good luck eating a full meal. You need like portable digestible energy in that reality.
Absolutely.
So the grab and go foods that exist in our society would be fine if we were more active, but most people just aren't active enough to justify it.
Damn. Rice Krispie treat gang at the gym?
Oh, heck yeah, dude. There's few things better. They sit nice. They feel great.
Oh, so I remember that there's like that portion of your podcast where some people like flaming you guys in the comments for like a Rice Krispie treat post. You're like, guys, like it's calm down. It's not that bad.
Yeah, but that is the world we live in, right? It's like, oh my God, I can't believe you'd recommend that. It's like to the person in the right circumstance. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
All food fits and makes sense. All food is puzzle pieces to make a puzzle. But the question is, what puzzle are
Tools
we
in the toolbox, man. We covered our macronutrients. So I did also want to talk to you about micronutrients, which I also know is like a whole other rabbit hole necessarily.
That'd be
but
a whole
like,
episode. But
it could be another whole episode. But if you want to give a general overview, we're again eating for health span longevity. When we keep looking at micronutrients like vitamin C, magnesium, we're looking at like how we should supplement those. How should we be approaching that?
Great. So micronutrients are going to be your vitamins, your minerals, and we'll call it your antioxidants just for ease. Let's put them in those three buckets. Those are the things that basically assist your body, right? So your B vitamins, people talk about, they give you energy. They don't actually give you energy. They're coenzymes and cofactors in the metabolism of energy, right? So B12 helps you break down carbohydrates. So it doesn't give you energy directly. It gives you energy indirectly by supporting a metabolic process. So our micronutrients, all of them do something like that, right? Magnesium is involved in over 300 reactions in the body. Vitamin D is a cofactor in hundreds as well, and precursor to hormones and all sorts of systems. Vitamin C is, again, an antioxidant that can work on basically free radical scavenging and can also help make sure certain things like iron convert to their active form. So micronutrients work behind the scenes to allow systems to work. So if our body is a giant factory that has a bunch of departments, the micronutrients are key workers in those departments doing specific tasks to drive the process forward. Getting enough of them is what matters. Getting too much of them is just like a business with too many employees. It's not actually going to help. It'll probably slow you down. That's what toxicity is.
So you end up cutting all those employees.
Yeah, you end up cutting those employees or peeing them out. And so more is better is the wrong way to look at micronutrients. Adequate optimal. Those values are a little bit less clear currently. And so we know the levels that'll like prevent deficiency. We're learning the levels. And this is where, again, some of the new nutrition is coming. Is like, what are the levels that are truly optimal? We're still learning that. They're definitely higher than some of the core daily values, the daily values being sort of like the bottom of like what you need to be alive and survive, versus what we're looking for is like, is there a dose that's 10, 20, 30% higher that actually would be better? Okay. And the answer is true. Yeah. So like vitamin D deficiency is vitamin D under 30, but we're very confident now that like a 50 to 70 is better than 30 to 50. We also know that over 100 is toxic and really, really deleterious to your well-being. So like we're still trying to find that optimization sweet spot for a lot of them. It is rare that the optimization sweet spot is anything more than a 10 or 20% uptick. And so we don't need to be pounding these things. Most people are lacking micronutrients because they don't eat enough protein and produce.
Goes back to
a lot of the micronutrients that we source from our diet are in our fruits, vegetables, and meats. And so most of the time, if you have a paleo style diet,
that problem takes care of itself.
Most of it, yeah.
But
then it's just, are there a couple that in a performance instance get better? And that's where like magnesium as an example, your muscles use magnesium. And so if you're super active, you're going to burn through a whole bunch of magnesium. It's also to say that we don't get a lot of magnesium from our food. Nuts and seeds are one of the main places, and most people don't eat a lot of nuts and seeds. So they're not eating magnesium rich foods, which means they're not getting a lot of magnesium. Athletes definitely benefit from some extra, but that's just because they're burning through more of it. Those factories are using more, so they need more. Things like vitamin C, there can be a case for a little extra as well in that kind of population. So we have two subsets. We have the average American who's lacking nutrients because they're lacking core foods, and they don't really need to be. Supplements aren't the goal or the best case. They're the insurance policy. So like, oh, your diet's crap, so let's give you a multivitamin as a catch-all. That's where most people are.
Okay.
You and I that can then talk performance, which is to say, no, there's people that are like really in tune with their health and wellness, and they're looking for like what they're burning through more. Well, one, I want to run a micronutrient panel on them, because I can sit there and speculate, but we're not just looking at what's in the diet. We're then asking, well, what's absorbed? And there are genetic things that dictate absorption. And then, so there's a whole bunch of other factors outside of that. So whether they're getting enough, and then whether they're actually processing enough, and whether they're using enough is a whole different thing. So if you have someone that's like really trying to fine tune their nutrition, like really get into the details, we're going to run a micronutrient panel on them. And instead of being like, yeah, let's throw this at the wall, it's like, no, let's give you this at this dosage with this conversion. So it is to say, magnesium is a common one. Vitamin D, we live in Pittsburgh, dude. Like, you get it from sun, and it's meant to hit your skin, which means you need to have 50% of your body exposed. So like, how many days a year are you outside for more than 15 minutes with 50% of your body exposed? The answer is like not 25% of the time. So like, you probably need to supplement vitamin D. It's really hard to get enough from food. So vitamin D is a common supplement. Magnesium is a common supplement. Vitamin C, if you're eating enough fruits and vegetables, it's one of the least necessary ones, to be perfectly honest. If you're eating adequate protein and adequate foods, zinc is not really as essential. So again, quality of diet is going to be a better predictor of like you're going to be mostly covered with a good quality diet. There's a couple exemptions from that, but all in all, food first really does work. And then from there, it's okay, are you burning through a whole bunch because you're super active or you're super athletic, or you like, again, I'll call it self-proclaimed, but I'm what we call a high-functioning human, right? Like, I squeeze the most out of my week. I work crazy hours. I'm engaged as a CEO of a company. I also train very intensely and athletically. So like, I burn through a whole lot more magnesium than the average person, both physically and mentally, right? Like, my brain burns through it from a nervous system standpoint, and then my body burns through it from a musculoskeletal and nervous system standpoint. So I am someone that I need to mega dose magnesium, but like, that is very unique to my scenario. And would I try and sell that as a protocol in my company? Not ethically. I would talk to a human about it and encourage it in them.
Do you need this, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And probably running that micronutrient panel is going to be like, well, probably the first order of business, actually, right? Because otherwise, you're just taking pills for the sake of taking pills. Which I'll be honest, like, to everybody here, like, I've been guilty of that. Kind of just that kind of throwing things at the wall, but I just haven't had the time or honestly sometimes the money to even just get the micronutrient panel done. But we'll get that done eventually. But
that's where there's kind of the can't hurt, might help, which is how the supplement world is. It's like, dude, like it's not going to hurt you to take it. It might help you.
It might help.
So that's where it's like literally throwing some against a wall, hoping it sticks, and then also not establishing any objective metrics to decide if it worked. Then there's working with a dietitian, which is going to be, I went to school for a long time to throw darts at a dartboard, and I hit bullseye a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's running a micronutrient panel, which is me walking up and putting it in bullseye. So like, which one do you want to do?
Case-specific nutrition, everybody.
Hey, love that.
And kind of like so we covered macronutrients, we covered micronutrients, but like when we talk about aging, I imagine how old you are actually impacts how you should be eating as well. And I kind of wanted to give you like a case scenario, because me as a 25-year-old who has little to no injuries and is a pretty robust metabolic system, if I do say so myself, versus someone, say like my mentor who I've mentioned before in this conversation and on my blogs and stuff. He's a 40-year-old, like approaching 40 years old. Sorry, Brandon. Combat veteran, and he has busted knees. He had busted knees and busted back. Yeah. That's what he said. That's verbatim. How should we be eating from our relative positions?
Awesome. This is a fun thought experiment. First things first, how much muscle mass do you both have? Right. So we need to do a body composition. Muscle mass matters because that's going to be the best predictor of metabolic baseline.
Okay.
It's going to give us your basal metabolic rate. You guys are different humans, which means you have different baseline metabolic rates. That's independent of your age and stage of life. That's just two different people. Age is more related to activity than it is actual age. So that is one of those components where to say that you don't change from 20 to 70 at baseline metabolic is false, but to say that that's the main change is also false, right? At 16 years old, I was going through puberty, so that was one of those things, but I also ran 60 miles a week as a cross-country runner. At 25, I ran 20 miles a week. At 35, I run 12 miles a week, and I lift weights, right? So like very different metabolic circumstances. Puberty to finishing off the growth cascade to being a full adult human definitely plays a role in that caloric discussion. The bigger piece of that discussion was I'm just way less, I'm an active human and I'm way less active than 15 and 25-year-old me. So right out of the gates, we go, biggest differentiators between you and your mentor are going to be what are your body compositions and lean mass. So how much lean mass do you have versus him? And then from there, how active are you? Okay. Those are actually the two biggest differences. His injuries affect his activity more than any other metric in his body. So yes, does he, as being injured and having a messed up back, is he more prone to pain, which means his nervous system's overstimmed, which means he's burning through more magnesium and choline and phosphatidylserine and maybe some extra vitamins? Sure. Yeah. Is that a 1-3-5% uptick? At most. I don't know the number, and that number wouldn't be clinically
you would have to
provable.
Actually, you'd have to sit down with them and be like, I need to like look at your stuff.
But to say most of it is that he's going to be less active.
I see. Okay.
From there, like he probably sleeps worse because his back hurts. And so is he getting as much REM sleep as you, which means he's not getting as hard of an HGH kick and he's not getting as much restorative reality. So like, is he once again burning through nutrients in a different way? Okay. Probably. All of these things are so small though, that we would like search for proof of the differences. And at this current juncture, not really feel confident in what's actually true for this, right? So are we like, oh, he needs 20 milligrams of magnesium more than you? We're not there. I mean, maybe, but it's to say that that's not where
it could be the case. It could be the case.
And would I be more likely to recommend magnesium to a 40-year-old with back issues than a 25-year-old with pep in his step? Heck yeah. But are we at a point where we can give like crazy neurotic levels of dose specificity? No. Okay. But his lean mass and his sleep quality and his activity are far more impactful of the differences in your guys' metabolic realities. And so I'd sit down with the two of you. We'd take your body fat. We'd talk through your activity. We'd talk through all those things. And then we'd be able to look at what your total daily energy expenditure is. And then given your activity and your muscle mass, we'd build out your protein needs. They're probably within 30 grams of one another, which means they're within 100 calories of one another. So like not a crazy difference, but different. Okay. We'd look at your carbohydrate needs based on activity. They're probably within a couple hundred calories of one another, which means they're within at most 100 grams of each other. Your fats are probably within 10 grams of one another because most dudes have a fairly similar fat need. Micronutrients are probably within 10% of one another. The biggest differentiators already stated, and then the rest of it's like pure genetics at that point.
Okay.
And that's where core nutrition, when I say it's 95% of it, I mean it, dude. Like if you were eating really good quality food most of the time, well balanced, and it fit into your life, we're kind of like lost in details beyond that. Like we don't need those extra details.
So it sounds like insofar as the diet is concerned between the two of us, it's actually probably going to be remarkably the same or similar. Maybe you're shifting very small levers here and there. Like you said, if he's dealing with injuries, maybe it's not even food at that point. Maybe you have to get like stem cells or something. I don't know. But like it's just help with those issues. Yep. Maybe certain foods that can like they're higher in. I think it's magnesium glycinate. That's like the form of magnesium that helps with sleep. But whatever, right? Certain things, certain small levers.
Yep. It's again, your diets are going to look 90% similar, maybe even 95. There's little tweaks that we can make to optimize them. But again, most people aren't doing the first 90 or 95 well enough to even justify. Like, why would we spend our time on the 5 when you're doing the first thing poorly?
Right.
We're sitting here going, okay, your pie chart of thriving, you could get 95% of that pie done by doing these core things. And you're at 30 of that. Mm-hmm. So I can either get you 65% ROI, or you and I could beat our head against a wall, spend thousands of dollars on testing to get 1%. What are we talking about? That's nutrition in a nutshell, is we spend all our time beating our heads over a wall over 1%, when 99% of people aren't doing the 95 well.
Majoring in the minor
things, dude, over and over and over. So
it's fascinating because I had an inclination that this topic was going to be pretty nuanced and dense, and it's probably going to be like an iceberg issue. Like we're only going to scratch the surface.
Absolutely.
I didn't realize how like detailed this was going to be though. Which even when you restrict the goal to something as so specific as, hey, how do we eat in a way that's going to optimize our health span? There's so much nuance and detail about like how to do that. I can see the value in having a dietitian sit with a patient or be either one of their clinicians that they see over the course of their lives. Andrew, I'm surprised the profession is not more popular.
Well, we are in our 15 minutes right now, dude.
Yeah.
It is becoming way more popular. Nutrition is definitely, obviously becoming increasingly popular. One of the biggest things is that private practice dietetics is very young. So like when I started my practice 12 years ago, it was an open landscape. There was like no one in this profession doing what I'm doing.
Okay.
Because up until 2013, dietitians couldn't bill medical insurance without a referral from a doc. And we only were covered for diabetes and kidney disease. We were covered for acute care in outpatient settings. And in 2013, preventive care started to become a conversation, and we got brought in as medical specialists with preventive care. And now we can see most people at no cost as a preventive service. So our profession didn't exist in this capacity 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's now here. And so private practice nutrition is definitely scaling. If you need proof of it, there's a whole bunch of venture capital backed virtual practices we're actually like, our industry is now getting funded. Which is exciting. Their quality of service is trash. Their consistency of service is trash, which is why we exist as a high quality, high consistency service. So I'm not worried about the competition. I'm actually excited that they're making it known that dietitians are readily available. And then Case Specific is going to be the cutting edge, best of the best 10 out of 10 dietitians that do it better than everybody. So it's kind of a fun, I get to go quality while our profession goes quantity. Mm-hmm. But the fact that our profession's finally going quantity is a very exciting time. It's a big step. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but even then there are some hurdles. Like because one thing I think about we talked about how much schooling you guys have, 4 years of undergrad, then it's a clinical, like a residency internship, right? And then you have the master's degree on top of that. Whereas with doctors, probably only get there's actually a statistic I read this in my notes. It was like from Stanford Medicine. They said that, Stanford Medicine said that medical students get fewer than 20 hours on nutrition.
Yep.
And while I think there's also a change with physicians where like nutrition's kind of getting worked more into the curriculum, the medical school I'm going to is also giving its students a nutrition class now,
which is great. Policies that are not just encouraging it, but are mandating it.
Yeah, but I also think there's a missed opportunity here because we already have a clinician that specializes in nutrition and dieting. So
Yep.
there's a missed opportunity, I think, for better cohesion among medical professionals. So Andrew, what do you think are like the hurdles that you guys still face that are preventing you from having more of that scope that you guys should have?
Doctors would refer to us if we were more consistently available.
What's stopping you guys from being consistently available?
Our profession is so new and young in this reality.
Oh, okay.
So again, 10 years ago, private practice didn't exist. So there wasn't a fast-talking, charismatic dietitian in every town. There wasn't a friendly neighborhood dietitian. There were dietitians in a hospital doing hospital things. Fast forward to 5 years ago, there was probably a fast-talking, charismatic Andrew equivalent in every major city, but not in the minor outlands and low-income populations, and there's inconsistent Medicaid coverage. So like, it's a wild west where there's not consistency of access to care or consistency of clinician care. The reasons I've been scaling and mentoring and training the way I have been is because that is what has to become commonplace. If a case-specific equivalent existed in every city and doctors could consistently rely on that collaborative partnership, they would. And they will, and they do, and it's becoming more common, but it's just such a young concept. Preventive care is young, right? The policy and the coverage that allows it is young. The model that supports it is young. And as a result, the awareness of it is young.
Is young,
and so
okay.
this is something that's coming. It's a wave, and my company is an example of one of the leaders of that wave. The demand, the rate at which we're growing and hiring is testament to that. Like, holy crap, we're exploding. We're doubling in size every year.
Aren't you guys like the largest company that employs dietitians on this side of the Eastern Seaboard? Or
if you dig into the brick and mortar world, like location based, we're definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest.
Okay.
There are a lot of virtual practices out there that have more RDs than us, whether they're full-time. Like, we have a lot of full-timers.
Right.
Like, we are a W-2 dominant contractor minor. But yeah, so it's to say we are absolutely like a leader of the concept of brick and mortar, well-scaled private practice. And we're definitely the biggest one in PA, which is kind of neat. So yeah, we definitely are a leader in our org, and we work with a lot of the other bigger groups collaboratively to try and, again, normalize this. That's why I said I'm excited by the funding phase. The funding phase can be rough because VC money comes in and it always kind of taints certain things and can distort things.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole too.
That's an entrepreneur rabbit hole we don't need to go down, but the net positive is that they're an awareness campaign. And so if small businesses that are local can double down on quality, double down on relationships, and survive the scaled reality, on the other side, we're going to be a normalized thing. Look what happened to therapy, right? BetterHelp didn't put therapists out of business. BetterHelp normalized seeing a therapist and made current local practices waitlist 6 months out. And so like the normalization of a thing, see a dietitian, is a net positive. Now, during this phase, will a whole bunch of small practices go out of business because they don't know how to source the right clients and find the right connections and build the right leads?
Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely going to like hurt the little guy or hurt the non-business savvy, if I'm going to say it in a colder way. But if you're one of the ones that are able to double down and find your niche and really thrive through this, you're going to end up with a practice that has normalized demand and increased visibility as a byproduct of the normalization of a process. And we've then hit the fast forward button on doctors knowing that dietitians are accessible and preventive and covered by insurance, which then increases the likelihood a doctor is going to try and build that relationship. And then from there, it's just, can we build a consistent, cohesive enough model that has high enough standards that it's actually replicable across the nation? And that's where a lot of my educational desires and my future of, I'm going to have a case university launch.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. You're going to have a university teaching dietitians.
That is. That's an example of, hey, we're the 10 out of 10 dietitian. And so there's a whole lot of really awesome, passionate ones that just don't have the experience we have. Any dietitian I hire, there are things that I have to train them on because we don't do just what normal dietitians do. So like, I want to, over time, as we build that internally, share that externally as a way to share the roadmap of, hey, we need epic dietitians. And right now there's 380 million Americans. 80% of them are overweight or obese. So 300 million Americans need us for chronic disease support. My practice sees 3,000 a month. So I'm at 0.0001%.
Yeah, just about. But that's so and clearly a lot more to go.
If I triple in size in the next 2 years, which is like a pretty robust goal, I'm at 10,000, which means I'm at 0.0003%.
So yeah.
I can only help so many people. And so at some point, like, I just want dietitians to be present. I want them to be available. I want them to be accessible, and I want them to thrive. I'm going to be a big part of that. I want our name to be a leader in it, whether that's teaching clients or teaching doctors or teaching dietitians, probably doing all of the above.
Absolutely. Well, I hope, this podcast in a small contribution to getting that message out there.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
My man.
This was great. Clearly, we have to do a second one at some point because, again, we only scratched just a tiny portion of this iceberg. There were so many other rabbit holes that we just had to, like, all right, we got to get back to the topic at hand.
For sure.
Because otherwise that would have been another 2-3 hours.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
If you have more questions, I have more comments, brother. Anytime.
Hell yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in for the episode, for first episode of 2026. And stay tuned for the next. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.